It's time for the McDonald's Hendricks County Sports Show on 1610 AM XRB, xrbradio.com, and, of course, on Audio Sports Online. Our sponsors are our title sponsors, McDonald's, College Prospects of America, and BMO Harris Bank. We are at the Brownsburg McDonald's on Main Street. My special guest host this week is Christopher Worley, and we're joined by the head coach of the Brownsburg Bulldog football team, Coach Brett Comer. Coach, how are we doing this week?
I'm okay. How are you?
Not too bad. Bulldogs coming off of a loss against the Avon Orioles by the score of 41-13. Big rivalry game. When you got in there, you could see the Avon kids were pumped. This is the first time their kids, any of their kids, have been able to play your team at home. And they seem to be pretty well. They were pretty well up for it.
Yeah, they were certainly jacked up and ready at the beginning of the game, and we kind of went through a warm-up quietly. So we were a little worried about the beginning of that game, and with a bunch of new kids, like you said, first time a lot of our kids have played at their place as well. 2 years ago, their home game was in Lucas Oil Stadium, so it had been a number of years. And we explained the last time we were at their place, we had beaten them 42-14 to win the sectional championship. So, and that was the last time I was on that field, too. So we had a lot of good memories at that place. So.
Well, unfortunately for Friday night, memories weren't so great.
No.
But you take a look at this. You've got a very young team, a freshman quarterback. We talked about some of the youngsters in the secondary. And for the first two quarters, a very, very well-played game by your team. You're trailing only 17-13 at the half.
And actually, we like the middle two quarters because the first quarter we spot them a 9-point lead. We're asleep on defense our first series, and they run – what seemed like a very, a running play that took a while to get the guy to the end zone, and it should have been defended, and it wasn't. But like you say, we're new. We got a lot of new kids or different kids playing, but it's time that they step up and make those plays.
You got the big touchdown run from Toksak and Rabati. The extra point actually gives you the lead in this game. And kind of went a little bit back and forth defensively, a few miscues, but also some good things. Your freshman quarterback, Hunter Johnson, really this was the first game that we saw you really start to let him loose a little bit.
Yeah, and that's going to be a process for a kid that's only a freshman. I mean, you remember he got thrown in the fire at Southeastern with an injury to Jacob Lambert. And so it's a very limited playbook right now as a freshman. We were happy with the fact that we competed. Coach Neal's comment, and he's our defensive coordinator, does a really good job with our defense, is the fact that we were actually having fun playing football on Friday night, and we were. We go in there and spot them a 9-point lead on the touchdown run. They get the field goal, and then we finally started to play, and it's almost like we relaxed when we got behind, as weird as that may sound. But we started getting people to the ball. We actually hit people a little bit. And good things happen. I mean, we get the field goal from Brandon, a long run. Tokes pops a long run. That's his longest run, I guess, from scrimmage. I didn't realize that at 55 yards. And nobody catches him, and we're up 10-9. And you could kind of feel it. Kids kind of started okay, and then we kicked off. We give up a long return. All of a sudden, momentum change. And then, we had a 47-yard field goal right before the half to cut it. 17-13 at the half. It's 20-13 in the fourth quarter. And we're scratching and clawing, and then that was the end about there.
Well, you talk about that fourth quarter, and Coach, it really seemed like just this little 6-minute stretch.
Yeah, sure.
They're up to 20-13. You 3 and out. They make the touchdown drive. You get the ball back, and then as we have Coach Joe Polizzi here. He says nothing ever good happens with a block punt.
No, you typically, and our saying, my saying, you get a punt block, you're going to lose the game. Then again, if we block a punt, we're going to win that game too. So that kind of goes both ways. That was a big play, and like we talked off air, a combination of negatives that happened on that particular play, and their guy made the play by sticking his arm out and making the block, and then they get the touchdown on a very short field, and then the next series they get another touchdown on a tip screen that the defensive end comes up with and makes a great play. So be it, and that's the difference in winning those games and losing those games, is having the ability to make those plays, and they did it.
One positive that I liked in this game is good to get Brandon Dowers finally on the board with a couple of field goals, and that one before the half was really big, and you can tell he was really happy about that.
Yeah,
how'd that set you up at half?
It really, the first field goal he stroked. The second one, the 47-yarder. And to be honest, I guess I didn't realize it was that long. I knew he had that in his range. 35 is basically my guideline on a Friday night as to whether or not we're going to kick a field goal or not. We get it to 35. It's a 52-yard field goal. And depending on the situation, we would let him kick longer field goals. He had a 47 at Avon the other night and was under it. And if you watch the ball was spinning really fast, meaning he got under it. So he's got more distance than that. I was blowing into the wind, hoping that thing get over the crossbar, though, because that was big. I mean, that was a big piece, and it was a step for our kids. And the step was that we came out and we competed in the game. Obviously, we want to win the game, but we wanted to be competitive, and we hadn't been competitive in a couple of weeks.
And that's a big kick going into the half, because you got the ball back to begin the second half.
Absolutely. And we were unable to in the second half. I'm not sure how many first downs we actually gained. It wasn't very many, but that was it. And that's the difference in winning those games and losing those games, or being in position to win them. You can only play defense so long. You got to continue to move the chains and score points, and we weren't able to do that.
You saw your freshman quarterback, Hunter Johnson. The stats say he was 6-19. Some of that's a little misleading, because he had a few really nice thrown balls that got tipped away by Avon defenders.
Yeah, and he had a few drops, too. I mean, and statistically, we're to be honest, we're not real worried about stats with him. He's a brand-new kid getting thrown into the fire, and he's got a lot of things coming at him. Was obviously jacked up for his game versus Avon at Avon, and he'll be better every week for the next, year and a half, and then he's going to be really good for us. And we anticipate that he'll throw plenty of touchdowns for us in the future.
We figured he was rather jacked. We were noticing during that game that a lot of his passes were a little on the high side.
Well,
you could just see that he was amped up.
Yeah, sure, he was. And you can't blame him. The kid's 15 years old playing varsity football. He shouldn't be out there. But he is, because of his ability, and he's going to make a lot of plays for us.
Well, I'm sorry, Brian. I think you guys like his mental makeup too. He seems to be a tough kid, and he's got some moxie.
He is a really, and I don't know him that well. I mean, as a freshman, we just don't know. I mean, I don't know our freshmen that are currently on our team that well, because they haven't played for us. And the more and more time you spend with him, he is indeed a cool, calm, cool, collected kid. Comes from an athletic family as well, and you would expect it. But I think he's a little beyond his age, because he is really laid back. Or he just doesn't know he's supposed to be crazy, to be tight, or one of the two. I'm not sure which, but he's going to be a really good player for us.
You had Toksak and Rabati had the big 55-yard touchdown run, gained 97 yards on the day. But one of the other players we saw that had, we thought a pretty good game, was Devontae Allen.
Yeah, he's really coming into his own. At the beginning of the year, we decided to put him at wing. He may be a little better receiver, but it's a necessity spot for us, and he's really learning to play on Friday night. And there's a guy that, at the beginning of the year was his first time ever on Friday night, was a part-time player for us last year as a JV guy. And now he's developed some athletic ability, and he's learning to make those plays. And I thought he really took, our outside rocket sweep is what we call it, and he made some plays with that, made a cutback and some big runs, and he's learning to take care of the ball too, which is big.
And he's gaining confidence as he's
had
success these last few games.
Absolutely, and he's becoming more vocal, and that's the whole process. Obviously, we want to win every game that we play, and we want to be 9-0 in a conference every year. That is unrealistic, and we're getting a dose of reality this year. We'll put it that way, and we can't wait to get back to that being unrealistic, if you will, and winning those games. And he'll be part of it.
Defensively, a good first half. A couple of mistakes, and you give up a couple of big runs. Brett Geilinger seemed to be pretty much everywhere.
I thought Brad had a good game. He was our defensive player of the week. We give player of the week awards typically every week, depending on the outcome of the game and how the score looks. There were a couple weeks this year we haven't given players of the week, but Brad was our defensive player of the week. I'm not sure what his statistics, how many tackles he had, but he's a DB making tackles. People say that's bad, but he made some plays as a corner playing cover two, where he came up. I know one of them in particular, their tailback out in space in the flat, going away from their scoreboard. I can picture it right now. I can't describe it very well, but he comes up and makes his play all by himself. A solo tackle, upends the kid, loses 2 yards. His minus tackle as a corner was a great play.
And he had a couple of those nice out in space, open field tackle.
Yeah. He's a sure kid. He's got really good feet. Unfortunately, he's about 5'6", if that, and we're stretching that a little bit. But he's a good player. He's a very good high school football player.
Doing punt returns also.
Yeah, you bet. He's the guy we trust. I mean, that's it. You put guys back there that can either light it up and score points, or guys that you trust when you don't have that, and that's where we are. And Brad is sure-handed as anybody. So he's back there, and he's on. He's a punt return. He's on the kickoff return. He's on the defense. He's on about everything that we have, because he's a good player and he's a trustworthy guy.
You're coming up this week. You will make the trip up to Lafayette for the final time. You'll take on the Lafayette Jefferson Broncos. The Broncos also 1-4. For Coach Andy Kennedy, you don't have to go back too far and to think of how offensively explosive the Broncos were. Now he's maybe in a little bit of a similar situation you've seen your own team. He's got one big stud, Darian Green, and he plays him everywhere.
He's got more than one because they're the fastest team in the league. His quarterback is a state champion in the 100-meter dash. Darian is a state champion in the 4x1 team. So we're very aware of those guys and who he has and what he typically does. And you're right, it's not that many years ago that we went up to Jeff and they hung 49 on us. Just in my tenure as a head coach, I distinctly remember that game because it was a tight game in the fourth quarter and they ended up blowing it out. Since then, it's been a little bit different, but we certainly anticipate a great crowd up there because it's their homecoming, and they're going to be, hopefully it'll be good weather and playing on their turf, and it'll be a fun game for us. A different kind of game. I mean, and that's the beauty of high school football is 1 week you're defending the ISO, and Avon's trying to pound it down your throat, and the next week they're 4 and 5 wides, and you got to defend the shotgun spread. So it's a different challenge for us, and one that it's going to be different for our kids, but one that we're excited about as well.
You'll have coaches mentioning the quarterback of the Lafayette Jefferson Broncos, Matt Johnson, and again, Matt was with them, I believe, last year as well.
Yeah.
He and Darian hooked up on quite a few, and then when you've got a guy like Darian Green, we mentioned an excellent running back. He'll catch the ball out of the backfield. He's already gotten an intercept. Last week he had an interception return for a touchdown, and then you always got to worry about him on kickoff returns.
Well, I'm betting you our special teams coordinator is not going to kick it deep because I'm the guy calling special teams. So they're going to have to figure out another way to get it, and that's not a surprise. So I don't mind saying it here because people are going to kick away. Southeastern kicked to him deep twice last week, and he returned one of them to the 1 yard line, and the other one about the 30. So that's probably not going to happen Friday night. But we'll work a few other things into it, and we have our hands full with it. We know that with a young defense and brand new kids and trying to defend the fastest team in the HCC, and that's what they are. So we're going to have to be assignment sound, keep the kid in the pocket, and get him on the ground from a defensive standpoint. The best way for us to defend them is for our offense to go up and down the field and churn out first downs, and that's really our focus from an offensive standpoint.
You talked about before we went on the air that you had two good days of practice last week, and
Yep.
you said that led to 2 good quarters at Avon, and you're hoping to make that 4 good practices this
and
week.
that was the message at the end of the Avon game in the end zone when we met as a football team and talked about it. You never like to lose, but you also have to look at what you did right. And we had our best Tuesday and our best Thursday of the year, and that was we were very physical on Tuesday. And then Thursday was crisp and was clean going through it, and that's kind of your goal on Thursday. And then we got 2 quarters out of it. So that's our challenge this week. So far, we've had 3 good days of practice, so maybe we got 3 quarters banked up. And that was what we talked about at the end of practice tonight, was making sure that we finish the week tomorrow night with a good practice and therefore leading into a quality performance on Friday night.
You talked a little bit before we went on the air. You do something that most coaches do not do. A Thursday, you work hard and you work in pads. A lot of coaches will do Thursday walkthroughs, shorts and jerseys, and just kind of go through. But you're taking that a little differently this year.
It kind of depends on the team. It depends on where you are. To be honest, on Monday, our offensive, defensive lines, we were in pro pads on Monday too, and we were banging and we were going after each other. Tomorrow will be more of a physical day, if you will. We certainly go through everything that everybody else does as far as your special team script, checking your personnel, etc. But we do also have individual periods on Thursday morning or Thursday afternoons, and our linemen go at it still. Our linebackers are hitting running backs, and that's the way we have to approach this, because if we're not physical in practice, we're not physical in the game, and we have to be physical. I mean, that's it. In the HCC, you want to win games, you got to hit people in the face, and that's what we're trying to teach.
Then you go through each week. It's a young team. You got improvement in Avon, and you're just preaching that 1 week at a time?
Well, we're trying, you bet. Yeah, and you're looking at what's in front of you. I typically divide the season into quarters, and in our first 3 games we were 1 and 2. So now you're in the middle of that second set of games, if you will, before you close out with the last 3, since it's a 9-game season. Used to be a 3-game sectional, now it's only a 2. So my quarter speech has changed a little bit. I can do a little bit of math. So, but that's kind of where we are, and that's the way you have to do it. And whether you're winning every game or you're losing games, you have to put it away. And we put it away. This week we actually gave our kids Saturday off. It's the first Saturday that we've taken off. And then on Monday we went through the film with the varsity guys, made sure that we tried to correct errors, presented our scouting reports, so it was a longer practice. And then we went out and watched our JVs play Avon and got the victory, as did our freshmen. So
I was going to say that was
a pretty good Monday.
That was a nice JV win over.
It was a good
Avon.
game.
Had a good drive there in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, had a big drive. That was about their only drive of the game, though.
Yeah,
that was a game of turnovers back and forth. Yeah. But that was a good victory for them. Our JVs are at 4-1. So
very good. Good news. They got a victory against Avon.
Well, and it's nice for those. It's nice to have success. They got out of conditioning tonight. Yeah, they didn't have to run any gassers at the end of practice like the varsity guys did, but so they were rewarded, if you will. So.
Yeah. Coach, as Brian mentioned, though, this is your last regular season, at least scheduled trip to Lafayette. Mm-hmm. And I forget, help us out here. Who replaces those teams on your schedule?
We're going to play. We'll open up next year at Pike. Game 1. We'll have Lawrence North at home, and then we will travel to Franklin Community in week 3. It's interesting next year. The HCC will have a floating, not an off week, but a floating week out of conference, and it's already been drawn, and our out of conference week is week 3. So we play 2 non-conference games, then we play a third non-conference game. That's our flex week. So, for example, I think it's Westfield has week 9 is their flex week. So each team in the HCC will have a different week off where they'll play out of conference.
Okay.
So all of those schools last year had to do some scheduling, and we were all looking for games.
Yeah.
And for us, it ended up being week 1, week 2, as it is for everyone in the HCC. But for us, it was also week 3. So we're going to play, which I'm not sure how I feel about. I mean, to be honest, it's going to take a couple of years to figure out whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
You almost think you might like a break in the middle of the HCC,
sure.
but we're used to playing 9 games in a row,
right.
And they're all conference championship games. Because if you lose them, you lose 2 of them, you're pretty much out of it. At least that's the track record the past few years in the HCC. So we picked up 2 mixed schools and a mid-state school. So we'll see.
Sounds tough.
You take a look. We'll step out of the HC for just a bit because of your sectional opponents. You look at the MIC right now. They had, out of the 8 teams, 7 of them were in the top 20 in Class 6A at the start of this season. Yeah. And much like we've watched year in, year out of the Hoosier Crossroads Conference, that's been a meat grinder for that conference all year.
Sure. And when you look at the other teams that were in that top 10, they were in the HCC. So it's the MIC and the HCC, and then obviously there are a few other schools elsewhere that would want to have something to say about that. But that's part of the reason we want to play some of them too. And that's to get that judgment game or the barometer, if you will, however you want to word it, to compare things. With the ACC being an island conference this year for the last year, it's difficult to evaluate and say, okay, well, how would Brownsburg do against blank because we don't play anybody outside the conference.
Right.
Well, next year we will. So we'll have a direct comparison game 1 when we're at Pike, and we'll see just exactly how much we've improved in our off season. And where we are and where they are. So you're right. The MIC is a meat grinder too.
That is the head coach of the Brownsburg Bulldogs, Brett Comer. Coach, we wish you the best of luck, and we'll be up there with you this Friday. Want to remind Brownsburg fans, that there has been a time change to that game. It will kick off at 7:30, not 7 o'clock. Chris Worley and I will have the call of that game on 1610 AM XRB, xrbradio.com. You can also watch that game on Audio Sports Online. We'll have the pregame show at 7:15 and the kickoff between the Bulldogs and the Broncos at 7:30. Coach, good luck this week.
Thank you. We'll see you there.
All right, when we come back, we are going to hopefully find Mr. Joe Polizzi from College Prospects of America. This is the Hendricks County Sports Show. Right now at all Avon and Brownsburg McDonald's, you can check out the brand new Mighty Wings. Mighty Wings are hearty bone-in chicken wings that are crispy and breaded with a spicy kick. Available in 3-piece, 5-piece, or 10 pieces, a 3-piece is only $2.99 at all Avon and Brownsburg McDonald's. Are you interested in playing a sport at the collegiate level? College Prospects of Central Indiana can help you achieve this dream. Right now, thousands of college coaches are searching for athletes, but lack the resources to find them. This includes Division I, II, and III, as well as NAIA and junior colleges. College Prospects can help both male and female student athletes get the best education at the best price that allows them to continue participating in a sport they love. We do this through maximum exposure, providing you with essential tools, video, and unlimited personal guidance during the recruiting process. For complete details on all of our services, ask your local representatives, Bill Verhonick, Megan Eganoff, Joe Polizzi, or Rusty Dimer. You can also visit our website at www.collegeprospectsofcentralindiana.com or contact us at 317-650-4339. We also offer services for gifted students looking for the best fit in academics as well. College Prospects of America can help you achieve your dreams. Since 1984, BMO Harris Bank has grown to become one of the largest banks in the Midwest, serving personal, commercial, and affluent customers. Located locally at 610 West Northfield Drive in Brownsburg, we thank them for their sponsorship of the Hendricks County Coaches Show. Welcome back to the McDonald's Hendricks County Sports Show on 1610 AM XRB, XRBradio.com. I want to remind fans that you can see a video podcast of this show every Thursday on Audio Sports Online. We record this show Wednesdays from Avon and Brownsburg area McDonald's. Next week, we will be back in Avon at the McDonald's on Rockville Road. That's the one in front of Myers. One of my guests will be head coach of the Avon Oriole football team, Mr. Mark Bless, and we'll see who else we can get a hold of next week, especially for this segment, which is the College Prospects of America Athlete of the Week. And unfortunately, we were unable to get an athlete for this week, so we will be bringing in Mr. Joe Polizzi from College Prospects of America. Joe, welcome to the show.
Well, I take offense to that now. I'm not that bad of an athlete.
No, that's right.
Matter of fact, a lot of people in this area remember 17 years as the head coach of the University of Indianapolis. Coach, you've got a very unique view about recruiting and what, especially what parents of potential recruits should be looking for.
Yes, very much. But first of all, I'd just like to say you guys do such a great job, and it is such a service, and the coaches appreciate the exposure, and the student athletes. This is just what it's all about, and the way you guys present it and bring it on, it makes it extremely special, extremely valuable, and I just want to thank you for that. And it's a pleasure for me to be involved.
Well, we appreciate College Prospects of America, normally every week bringing us the College Prospects of America Athlete of the Week, as we try to focus on one of the youngsters, student athletes involved usually in Avon and Brownsburg football. And College Prospects of America, you've heard us talk now for the previous 4 weeks, really helping. We always know that there are certain athletes that all schools are taking a look at. But there are plenty of athletes, and there's plenty of schools out there looking for young athletes, student athletes that they have the potential, they have the ability, they just need to know where to go.
What College Prospects provides is just an avalanche of marketing where it's hard to go unnoticed. We can contact over 2,000 schools with the press of a button. So if you've got an athlete in your family or in your high school that just has not been contacted for some reason, whether staffs can't get out and find them or there are numerous reasons why that can happen. What we can do is get that name out there with a marketing piece, which is a profile that highlights all the top points that need to be stressed, plus a videotape that we can get out across the country. And it's just a super job of being proactive about marketing a student athlete.
One of the questions that I think a lot of people, especially parents, is how do they know when their student athlete is actually being recruited by a college?
That's a great question because there are levels of interest. I think that you are a prospect if you're getting a questionnaire. You're a prospect if you're getting the sample phone call. It's just a fact-finding mission. To say that I'm really being recruited, that is when a coach is talking to you about a campus visit, trying to get you on campus and show you what they have to offer academically, athletically, and socially. Then you really know you're being recruited, to me, when the head coach is in the picture. When he's talking to you either on the phone or in person or in school, and he has actually talked about opportunities for a scholarship. So there are levels, and it's hard for high school coaches and certainly parents to determine where they are in this recruiting process because it's an interesting game that it takes a professional to help you through.
Joe, now, of course, we in the media, we hear about the star players going to the big schools. Of course, I imagine your service would be great for the in-between kids who are not going to go to Michigan and the big programs. You help match them with Miami, the Ohio's of the world, schools like that, right?
Exactly. Now, that's not to say that we couldn't help a great prospect. What we're going to provide is exposure. If there's a great athlete from our area, Carmel, Ben Davis, you name it, maybe they don't know about him at Southern Cal or Texas. We'll get that word out. But you're right. Those schools have staffs where they can go out and find the great prospects. Some schools, Division II schools, NAI schools, that may not have a staff that they can send across country, that's where we come in. I can remember at the University of Indianapolis as the head coach, we were actively involved with college prospects, and we got information on a tailback from Hamilton, Ontario, and there's no way we could have sent a coach up there. But here he turned out to be our all-time leading rusher, and was a great football player, and was a super student athlete, is now graduated and is very successful. And it's just an example of, sometimes you need a little help in finding the top prospects, and that's what we provide.
One of the things I think a lot of parents of potential student athletes wonder is whose responsibility is it? Some of them, right or wrongs, think, is it the coach's responsibility to help an athlete in the recruiting process?
Well, I think that a coach certainly does get the names out, but a coach has other jobs. He's teaching class. He's getting ready for games. He's getting ready for next year. He's getting ready for the weight room. I would say that is a tough burden to put on a coach. They can do what they can do, but we want to work with the coach to that's what we do. 24/7, we want to promote a student athlete. We want to comprehensively help through the whole process, help parents answer questions. We'd like to, do it all, prepare a student athlete for a campus visit, what to ask, what to bring, what to wear, all those things. I think that a coach can get it jump-started, but we can really put the finishing touches on it, and that's what makes me so excited about our operation.
I'm sorry, Brian, what a valuable service. A lot of kids are not going to know that. Of course, they don't have experience in making a campus visit and doing those things, so I imagine you'd be a big help with that.
It really is, and it's so important because on a campus visit, to me, that's the critical part of recruiting. They're studying you, you're studying them, and you really need some coaching on how to act and what to wear and what kind of questions to ask, and really it helps parents because there are key questions that you need to ask that'll help determine if that school's for you, if that school is really wants you, and how you're going to fit in with their coaches and the rest of their players.
I think one of the final questions we'd like to ask is there's a lot of parents out there, and they all sit there and wonder, when do coaches usually get into start this whole recruiting process?
That's a super question, and the sooner the better. To me, a sophomore, a 10th grader, is when you should start getting information out. If you're interested in playing on the college level in all sports, you need to be starting to get the word out as a 10th grader, because that's when they're starting to look. If you wait till your season, you're really rolling the dice. So if you can get information out in the 10th grade, and then they can track your progress, and we can continue to promote you and upgrade your videotape and show how you gotten bigger, faster, stronger, your growth potential, not only athletically, but what your trend is in the classroom. I think that says a lot, and the correct answer to that is the sooner the better.
All right. That is Joe Polizzi. He is with College Prospects of America. Joe, I want to thank you for all you do with the student athletes around this area, and, of course, we want to really thank College Prospects of America for being a sponsor of the McDonald's Hendricks County Sports Show.
It's our pleasure, and, again, thank you guys for the tremendous job that you do.
All righty. Joe Polizzi with College Prospects of America. Coming up next is the Brownsburg Bulldogs athletic trainer. She's also from IU Health Methodist Hospital athletic trainer, and it is Miss Brandy Crum. Brandy, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
All righty. Well, we wanted to ask you, we brought you on today because there's a lot of people that they go to the games on Friday, and you see the pros, you see the colleges, but at the high school level, it is very critical that a program have a competent athletic trainer.
Right.
So what are some of the responsibilities you have come either on practice or game day?
Our responsibilities include, we go from right when the bell rings. So we've got kids in for treatments. All of our sports come in for treatments, even if they're out of season. They come in, rehabs, pregame treatments. We do taping, things like that. Then we also have to work with getting the field set up, making sure we have the right equipment. We talk to our EMTs on game day for football. We have our EMTs come out and we talk with them. We're lucky to have 2 team doctors here at Brownsburg. Dr. Sneed is our ortho, and Dr. Dawson. She kind of helps she's Gin Sports Med, does all of our concussion work. So that's just some of the stuff that we do. So then once the game starts, say football, for example, we kind of stay on the line of scrimmage. Chris and I, he's the other athletic trainer at Brownsburg. So we're watching for anything that people might not see. We watch kind of from the waist down, because when the first snap happens, those are some of our jobs. We go out and quick management on the field to get them off, and then we kind of go from there. Then after the game, it's post-game treatments, kind of assessing injuries and what our next step is in that process.
You talk about being responsible for all of Brownsburg High School. About how many athletes do you normally treat on a daily basis? On
a daily basis, in the indoor training room, which is where I am, I probably see at least 30 kids a day, minimum, and that's for rehabs, taping, whatever, and what have you, and that's probably within an hour and a half scope, because we work quickly to move them and get them back out to practice.
Brandy, you mentioned concussions, and I know that gets a lot of attention right now in football, last few years especially. What is your role in, I read the policy a little bit on concussions, so what's your role in assessing whether a player needs to either sit out a few plays or maybe sit out the game? Are you doing that evaluations yourself, or is there somebody else that does it?
Right. Typically, we do the initial evaluation. If we have a kid that we see either they look a little weird, or they come up to me, hey Brandy, I've got a headache, I have dizziness, nausea, anything like that, we do the first evaluation that when we see the kid. So we run them through a sideline test to kind of evaluate their symptoms, things like that. If we think that they need further evaluation, with the law in Indiana, they're immediately pulled and then they're referred to a doctor. Typically Dr. Dawson with us. Then they go through. We have impact baseline tests on all of our athletes, and that's one of the main concussion tests to get a baseline on their cognitive skills. We do. Then once we.
I'm sorry, Brandon. That would be at the game. That's. On the field.
The on the field is just our sideline check on them, okay. And then if we decide, no, they can't go back in, then they're pulled and they're held out of the game, and then we go into the next process of. Then they see the doctor maybe the next day, and then that's when they do their post-injury impact test to kind of see how close to baseline they really are, how far off they are. Once they go through that process, and once they're not symptomatic anymore, so no headaches, no dizziness, no nothing, then that's when they'll see the doctor again and get cleared for their return to play protocol, which is a 5-day minimum gradual return into physical activity to see if their symptoms come back.
Now, you work very closely, of course, with the coaching staffs and all the sports. A lot of parents, they're watching a game and they see a kid come off, might have been injured. How much goes into what do you decide whether that athlete can return on the field? I would assume you have final say in that matter.
Yeah.
And how much do you basically say, okay, at this point, you're done?
Right. Really, it depends. If it's a head injury, we don't mess around with that. If they've got any symptoms, boom, they're off. You're shut down for the game. Say if it's an ankle sprain, something like that, we do an assessment on the sideline. If we feel that, hey, it's not too bad, we think that we can tape or brace you and get you back out there, we'll tape or brace, we'll run them through some stuff on the sideline. If they're able to functionally do everything, then we're like, okay, let's try a few plays. Something like that. But if it's like, we tape and brace them and they can't do anything on the sideline, they can't explode out of their position, then we just shut them down right there.
How much of you talk about what you can do at the actual high school, how much, what type of stuff can you do at the high school as compared to saying, okay, we've got to send you over to IUL?
Right. We're very lucky. What we'll do like our initial assessment at the high school. And if I'm looking at someone and say it's their leg, I'm just like, you know what, I'm just not quite sure. I think we might have a fracture, something like that. We'll check them out. And luckily we have our doctors. They come twice a week. So we're very lucky in that aspect. And if it's close enough, we'll just have them walk over and see Doc. If Doc's not there, we'll give a call to the doctor and be like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. What do you think? And then they'll give us a recommendation from there. And if we have to send them in, we'll send them in.
Of course.
Brandy, how about your certification process? I know that, you have to get certified and all that. If somebody wants to be an athletic trainer in the future, is it a long process to get certified in your training in school?
It's not too long. I went through Purdue, my undergrads at Purdue, and they have an athletic training program. You have to, in order to become an athletic trainer, you have to graduate from a CADI accredited program. That's the Accreditation Committee for Athletic Training. It's a 4-year bachelor's degree. Once you graduate from that program, you're able to sit for the certification exam, and that's the bare minimum you have to have. Once you're certified, you could go out and get a job. Most people get a master's. I also have my master's, and that just gives you a little extra experience and be able to get into the workforce.
Very good.
Of course, you're working with Chris Compton. Both of you take care of Brownsburg High School. When you've got a good, especially come maybe in the winter, especially when Friday nights you've got basketball and the weekends you're loaded. How do you guys spread across all these different events?
It's tough. We have at Brownsburg, we have what are called key contacts, and so Chris and I basically split the sports. We're both with football. Then I am in charge of boys soccer, cheer, and women's volleyball. And then he does girls soccer, boys tennis, and cross country. And so it's tough when we're both there, but it's very much teamwork with Chris and I. So, right now he's at the volleyball match for me because I'm here. And so we just talk to each other, communication every day. Hey, can you cover this for me? Or hey, I need this covered. And it's just, we make it work.
And it's not all the games. I've seen Chris at practice too.
Right,
and he's working with the kid, on recovering there.
Yeah, we cover all of our practices also. Chris is typically out at football while I'm inside, and then I'll bounce between volleyball, boys and girls soccer. I pop out at tennis, so it's I kind of go on a cycle to check in at all the practices. Yeah, but we go to the practices. Once we get the athletes out on the field, we don't just kind of hang out in the training room or anything. We're out at the practices also.
You mentioned something. Of course, most parents, most people that watch sports, of course they see football, basketball, tennis, and all that. But you mentioned one very important one, that was cheerleading, and that's one that almost we hear year in and year out when studies done. Some of the most the highest number of injuries are related in cheerleading.
Yeah. You've got to look at what they do, especially cheerleading here. These girls are at very high level. They also do competitive cheer. We've got girls doing tumbling. We've got a lot of gymnasts. And, if you've got a girl, one of our flyers, if she's thrown up in the air and the base isn't strong enough, they drop her. We can have some big problems. So, yeah, they're one of our highest risk sports.
And they'll keep you busy.
Oh, yeah, they keep me busy. We're keeping them healthy right now, so hopefully we can keep up with that.
Well, and from what we have seen at Brownsburg, you guys, Brandy Crum and Chris Compton do a very fine job.
Thank you.
And we want to thank you for being on the McDonald's Hendricks
Thanks
County
for having
Sports
me.
Show. All right, when we come back, it will be Mr. Chris Worley and I. We're going to talk about what's going on in the Hendricks County. We'll take a look at some of our games coming up this week as we get ready for another week of high school football, and you can listen to it all right here on the McDonald's Hendricks County Sports Show on 1610 AM XRB, XRBradio.com. Right now at all Avon and Brownsburg McDonald's, you can check out the brand new Mighty Wings. Mighty Wings are hearty bone-in chicken wings that are crispy and breaded with a spicy kick. Available in 3-piece, 5-piece, or 10 pieces, a 3-piece is only $2.99 at all Avon and Brownsburg McDonald's. Are you a high school student athlete who would like to play at the next level, but are confused and unfamiliar with the college recruiting process? There is good news. College Prospects of America can help. We have been helping athletes get recruited since 1986. Right here in Central Indiana, we have representatives who offer personal and professional guidance to both male and female student athletes. Call us today at 317-650-4339 to learn all about recruiting and how we can help. You only have one chance to get recruited. Act now. Contact College Prospects of America at 317-650-4339. Since 1984, BMO Harris Bank has grown to become one of the largest banks in the Midwest, serving personal, commercial, and affluent customers. Located locally at 610 West Northfield Drive in Brownsburg, we thank them for their sponsorship of the Hendricks County Coaches Show. Welcome back to the McDonald's Hendricks County Sports Show on 1610 AM XRB, XRBradio.com, as well as Audio Sports Online. Want to remind everybody we tape these shows every Wednesday night from Avon and Brownsburg area McDonald's. This week we are in Brownsburg at the McDonald's on Main Street. I'm joined by my co-host Christopher Worley. Next week I will be in Avon at the Avon McDonald's on Rockville Road. That's the one in front of Myers, where I expect one of my guests to be Avon head football coach Mark Bless. Chris and I are now going to take a look around Hendricks County Schools and football action for, if you're listening on 1610 AM XRB, action of tonight. And, of course, we'll start right here in Brownsburg. Well, not quite right here. It'll be in Lafayette as the Brownsburg Bulldogs will travel to the Lafayette Jefferson Broncos. Both teams identical 1-4 records. Both teams coming off of losses. For Brownsburg, they fell to Avon by the score of 41-13 last week, a game that was much closer than that through the first half. It was 17-13 Avon. Brownsburg played two really good quarters that first half, and then got about a 6-minute stretch in that second half. Things kind of fell apart for the Bulldogs. They lose their fourth in a row. Meanwhile, Lafayette Jefferson, they're coming off of a loss to Hamilton Southeastern by the score of 42-22. The Broncos, for the most part this season, haven't scored a lot of points, haven't given up a lot of points either. They gave up 42 to Southeastern. That's no big surprise. There's a lot of teams that give up 42 points to Hamilton Southeastern. But coming into this game, Coach Brett Comer, you started, Chris, we saw a little bit of improvement last week. We saw, especially that first half, their young freshman quarterback, Hunter Johnson, at times I thought played very well. Threw the ball with some accuracy. As Coach Comer said, he was jacked. Yep. And we mentioned that, I think, in the second half, that ball was starting to sail on him. You could just see a little too much adrenaline going. But he also laid in some nice balls. Credit the Avon defense. They made some good plays. And now, as Coach Comer said earlier in the show, we want to take those 2 quarters and turn them into 4.
Right. And I do think, again, that he will develop further. You know, they've had another set now of 5 practices during this week to work with him on getting better. And plus 2, and I think we mentioned in the game, Brian, that right now for him, for freshman quarterback Hunter Johnson, the game is very fast. He's got 1,000 things going through his mind every minute. But as you get experience, then the game slows down a little bit. Your throws are going to be a little better. You start to feel a little more confident. Now, it's still early, of course, in his career, his 3rd game, but I would expect to see a little bit of improvement this game.
One of the things that I think Coach Comer and the Bulldogs would very much like to see is you look for improvement. I think Coach Comer is looking at this year a very young team. Almost as he said, he's starting a sophomore at safety. We talked a little bit about how well their JV team is playing, and if you think you're going to get those players with varsity experience, they're going to be a year older next year, and maybe some good experience from the JV team. Maybe he's got something to look forward to next year. But this year, it's improvements week to week. One of the improvements is going to have to be defensively. The Bulldogs come into this game giving up almost 34 points per game. They gave up some big plays, some missed assignments last week, and on defense, it's just one of those things week by week. You just want to shore up a little bit more.
Right, and we've seen it week by week, too, that defense is on the field a good portion of the game. I looked at just time of possession here so far for the season. Average time of possession per game for Brownsburg, just over 21 minutes. Their opponents over 26. Really, I thought that margin would be bigger. So that young defense is on the field a large portion of the game. They get wore down. In the second half, Avon outscored them 24-0 this past week. So I think we see that as the game goes on. As far as improvement on the defense, they're just going to have to keep working. Mac Dutra's been banged up on the inside interior line. He only played about half the game last week. They're hoping to get him back more this week. But Lafayette Jeff does not score a lot of points, so maybe we'll see. Now, he did mention they run a spread offense. You may know that more than I, but another test for the young Brownsburg defense this week.
Well, one of the things that the Bulldogs are going to see coming into Lafayette Jeff is, yes, they do run a 5 wide. They have a very quick quarterback in Matt Johnson. They have one stud, really, in Damian Green. Damian Green is the tailback. He is the linebacker. He is the kickoff returner. If you took it all-purpose yardage for Lafayette Jefferson after that game, that young man is probably going to have 2/3 of it. He is excels on both sides of the ball and in the kick return. So much so, we already heard from Coach Comer. He coaches the special teams, and he's already said, I've instructed the special teams coach not to kick to that young man.
Right, he's got a plan.
They're going to keep it away from Damian Green. What the Bulldogs want to do, they're going to go up. It's going to be, should be a beautiful night in Lafayette when Chris and I take to the air at 7:15. Remember that, fans, 7:15 on Friday. That game is the time for the game has changed from 7 to 7:30. Don't really know why, other than it probably takes Brownsburg a bit of time to get up to Lafayette, Jeff, so they've moved the kickoff back a half an hour, especially with a lot of the construction. If you are planning on going to Lafayette Jefferson, when you take the interstate up, especially once you get to the Lebanon area, you will find a lot of construction. So they moved the kickoff back, I believe, 30 minutes due to that. But should be a beautiful night, and we'd like to see a little more variation in the Brownsburg offense. We know Toksak and Rabati can run the ball, but what we saw out of Devontae Allen last week was very encouraging.
Yeah, Devontae's really coming on now. He's feeling more confident. They're using him in a number of different ways in that flex bone offense. So several people getting more involved in the offense is going to help. And then, as we've been talking about so far, if they could find another way to score, a punt return for a touchdown, a kick return for a touchdown, a defensive turnover, any other way than just the offense having to carry all the scoring load would really help. One thing I did look at here is, I believe he said it's Lafayette Jeff's homecoming. They're at home, both teams 1-4, so both really, I don't know if desperate's the right word, but it may be. Both teams want to win really bad. So I would kind of give Lafayette Jeff, this is their home game for them. It's their homecoming. Maybe give them an edge on the emotion side in trying to get one win with both teams 1-4.
Both these teams over the last 15 years have met 8 times. Brownsburg has won 5 of those games, including a blowout last year back here in Brownsburg. But last year, you can't compare anything. The Bulldogs won 9-0 last season. This is a totally different team. But the Bulldogs did win that matchup last year by the score of 42-6. The Bulldogs lost to the Avon Orioles last week. Avon has one whale of a matchup this week as the Orioles will travel to Noblesville to take on the 4-1 Millers. Avon coming off of that big win against Brownsburg, 41-13. And for Coach Mark Bless, yes, he was happy about the game. He was happy to get one of his running backs back. We saw Derek Tennant run the ball very well for the Orioles last week. Pair him up with David Shaw. The Orioles have a very formidable punch in the tailback position. But when we look at this game last week with the Bulldogs, it was really a 3-minute stretch. But credit Avon. They managed to go and score after holding Brownsburg to a 3-and-out after the start of the first half. They score a touchdown. On the very next Bulldog possession, they managed to block a kick. Nick Hanlon get Big Paul in there, and as Coach Comer said, credit him. He managed to slip through the protection scheme, get that, block the kick. That allowed the Orioles to take over deep in Bulldog territory. And then they come back and they get the big interception as Joe Belden puts a big paw up there, does what they teach all defensive linemen. Get through, put your hands in the air, tipped it up. Not too many defensive linemen are going to tip it to themselves and rumble it in from 12 yards. But it was a 6-minute swing, and what we saw out of the Avon defense really in that second half, and we've seen it this year in numerous games. We saw it in the Westfield game. We saw it in the Fishers game. We saw it even to a certain extent versus Hamilton Southeastern. Defense comes out in second half, makes some adjustments, and really shuts down their opponents. They were able to pin their ears back and really go after the young freshman quarterback from Brownsburg.
Sure did, Brian. And I remember I said, and I had a note there, that I had a little trouble picking a star of the game. There's quite a few standouts for Avon, and I thought sophomore quarterback Brandon Peters showed his continued development. He's very patient in the pocket, showed good skill and a good intelligence level in that game. But I had to pick the Avon defense as the star of the game. They were fantastic. Our guest last week on the Hendricks County Sports Show, Chad Piatek, was fantastic. And good defense by Avon. Now, here they go to this game at Noblesville, and that defense is going to be very tested. T.C. McKiernan, their Noblesville quarterback, I really like him. Of course, we've seen Noblesville play Brownsburg this year, and I thought he was outstanding along with their other skilled positions.
And Noblesville, much like what we've seen at Westfield, you look at Noblesville and Westfield, both 4-1 on the season, both they both marquee veteran quarterbacks. T.C. McKiernan, he is a 3-year starter for Lance Scheib's Noblesville Millers. Very experienced out there. The offense can do just enough, but it's Lance Scheib's defense, Coach Scheib's defense, averaging just giving up less than 16 points a game. They have enough offense to win the game. The defense shuts them down, and it's pretty much what Coach Mark Bless is now seeing at Avon. Have the defense give the offense a chance, and with the Avon Orioles, they're giving up less than 17 points. They're now starting to see those point totals offensively climb as they get a better rapport with Brandon Peters, wide receiver Cress Kimbrough, Sam Bloom, tight end Matt Moore. Each week you see that starting to gel a little bit more. And now that Derek Tennant's back and you've got that 1-2 punch with David Shaw at tailback and then the ability to throw deep, now that Coach Bless has got the defense, the offense is starting to come along.
Yeah, I see this as a heavyweight battle. Both these teams, I know Avon's going to feel much better about themselves after last week's game, of course. Now they've got some confidence on both sides of the ball. And as you mentioned, that Noblesville defense just giving up 15.4 points a game against tough competition. So I see this as a real battle. I predict something like 21-20, 23-20. This is going to be a close, tight game. I think it's going to be a good one.
Noblesville has won 2 straight. They're coming off of a victory at McCutcheon last week, 28-20. The Orioles looking for their second straight win. For Avon, they're looking for some type of a little bit of consistency. They're looking for their second win in a row. Over the last 15 years, Avon has owned this series 9-3, but it was Noblesville. They got the 1-point squeaker last year, that game at Avon, as the Millers came ahead 22-21.
Brian, you mentioned it too, I think, on our game last week. That Noblesville crowd and student body, they're great up there.
That will be a wild environment, and as we are expecting throughout central Indiana with some fantastic weather, we expect great crowds all over the state of Indiana. Plainfield, they will take on what has been the all you can say is explosive Decatur Central Hawks. Now the Hawks 2-3 on the season, but Coach Justin Dixon's team puts up almost 59 points per game. The Hawks, they're on a little bit of a swing. They've had some good momentum wins. They defeated Martinsville, and they won at Mooresville last week 55-14. The Hawks' lowest outscoring output this season, 47 points. For the Plainfield Quakers, they'll have their work cut out for them. They bounced back from the loss at Roncalli to defeat Greenwood at home last week by the score of 35-7. Coach Brian Woodard's Quakers getting the job done, 4-1 on the season. Big mid-state match. Can they keep down this explosive Decatur Central Hawks offense?
Yeah, there's something else. Decatur Central, number 1 in the state in scoring, with that almost 59-point average a game. I noticed here that Plainfield did give up 42 points to Roncalli. Overall, their defense just giving up 22.2, but they did give up 42 to Roncalli. So to me, if they face even a more high-powered offense in Decatur Central, I bet you they're going to give up some points. I wouldn't be surprised to see them let up at least 50 in this game, and that's going to make it tough for their offense. So I'm going to go with Decatur Central in this game. Should be an exciting one, I'll tell you that.
It should be. Make sure you tune into Audio Sports Online. We'll have that game for you as well on ASO this coming Friday. Should be a good one. For the Hawks, I kind of likened to him, I think, last week. It reminds me of in the NBA, Mike D'Antoni when he coached the New York Knicks. They'll put up points against anybody, but they can't stop anybody either. Plainfield, they have shown they do have a very good offense. Yeah. This could be another very high-scoring game. And right now, I think I would give the advantage to the Quakers. We'll see how that one turns out on Friday. Danville, well, for Coach Russ Sumner's team, it's not been the greatest of years. They're 1-4. They're coming off of a loss to Webo. A very close game, but still a loss nonetheless. They're second in a row. They've fell to the Stars by the score 27-24. They're only going to have to go on to take on a Lebanon Tiger team
5-0
that is undefeated. The Tigers coming off of a victory against Frankfurt, and I always like to mention Frankfurt because you just have no amount of fun saying the Frankfurt hot dogs.
Right.
But the hot dogs fell to the Tigers last week 21-6. Danville, it's been basically a struggle to find any type of consistent offense. The defense hasn't helped either. The Warriors got their one win this year against Crawfordsville that I believe the Athenians have not won a game yet this year. So that was their lone win. And Coach Sumner, 13-13 now in his third year. They had an excellent season last year. Things not quite going the way the Warriors intended to this season, but see how their back half of the schedule goes.
They did play a pretty good game against Webo, and at one point they led 24-14 midway through the third quarter. They had a couple good rushing performances by two of the running backs. Ben Jones and Autry Pickens had 329 yards combined. So maybe if they can get that ground game going and keep the ball away from Lebanon, they can keep it close and maybe make something happen here. But Lebanon at 5-0 is going to be an awful tough test for them.
Tri-West is 3-2 after coming off of a victory at North Montgomery last week by the score of 48-8. Coach Chris Cole's Bruins have only given up 14 points in their last two games compared to giving up 53 points in their two losses. So the defense has come around a bit for Coach Cole. The offense for the past 2 weeks has come around. They will take on the aforementioned Hot Dogs this week. That game is at home. I would hazard a guess that is probably homecoming for the Bruins as they look to go to 4-2 on the season.
Yes, and Frankfort 1-4, so good chance to get a homecoming win. The quarterback at Tri-West, he's been fantastic. Jake Hendershot, against North Montgomery, he rushed for 131 and passed for 247. He has 6 TDs passing on the season and 7 TDs rushing, so definitely a dual threat there. He's awful tough. They run a quick strike offense. I would look for a Tri-West, of course, to get that game done.
And, of course, besides the Plainfield Quakers, the other team in the county with a 4-1 record are the Cascade Cadets. The Cadets playing very well this year, 4-1. They are going to take on the Speedway Sparkplugs. This is always a tough matchup. Speedway gives a lot of – always seems like the Hendricks County Schools. Speedway always gives them a bit of a problem. And so this will be a good game for the Cadets as they will be hosting the Sparkplugs this Friday.
Yep, this has been one of our favorite teams to talk about. We are trying. I'm trying to get Coach Jason Thompson on this show maybe next week, we hope, when he's at Avon. But they come into this game. I was surprised Speedway's record's 3-2. Now, I know they always play good competition, but Cascade really playing good. I did get to see some of their tape this week. Their quarterback, Sawyer Donovan, he's fantastic. He's a mobile quarterback. He can run, pass. He's got a strong arm. So we'll see. This is a big game for them. I think this may be their biggest test yet here at Speedway.
As we close out this episode of the McDonald's Hendricks County Sports Show, let's take a look at the standings involving Hendricks County Schools. As we look at the Hoosier Crossroads Conference, 4 teams at the top of the conference, all 4-1. Of course, all the HCC schools play each other. 2 of those schools, well, we pretty much expect that. Fishers and Hamilton Southeastern at 4-1. The 2 surprises to a lot of people going into this season, Noblesville and Westfield. Both of those are 4 teams are 4-1. Both of them have some pretty good tests this week. We mentioned Noblesville is going to host Avon. Hamilton Southeastern is hosting Westfield. Okay. That will be the game of the week in the HCC. Following that, McCutcheon has a record of 3-2. Avon and Zionsville both with identical 2-3 records. The Bulldogs of Brownsburg and the Broncos of Lafayette Jeff that play each other this week, both of them with 1-4 records. The Harrison Raiders, the only winless team in the Hoosier Crossroads Conference. Schedule this week, as we mentioned, the Orioles are at Noblesville. Bulldogs are at the Broncos. McCutcheon is at Fishers. McCutcheon lost to Brownsburg, the only win for the Bulldogs earlier this year. McCutcheon will be at Fishers. Westfield, as I mentioned, at Hamilton Southeastern. Zionsville is at Harrison. As we take a look at the Mid-State Conference, the Plainfield Quakers, well, they're one of 2 teams undefeated in the conference, both of them 2-0. Quakers also own one of the best overall records in the Mid-State Conference at 4-1. Whiteland also 2-0 in the conference, 3-2 overall, followed by Martinsville and Decatur Central. Both of them are 2-1. But Martinsville is 4-1 overall. The Hawks of Decatur Central are 2-3. Greenwood at 1-2 in the conference, 2-3 overall. Franklin and Mooresville are both winless in the conference. Franklin 0-2, Mooresville 0-3. But Franklin owns a better overall record at 3-2, while the Pioneers, they're still searching for their first win of the season. Scheduled this week in the Mid-State Conference, Guerin Catholic is at Greenwood. Martinsville is at Whiteland. Mooresville is at Franklin. And, of course, the big game at Decatur Central. We'll see the Plainfield Quakers taking on the Decatur Central Hawks. In the Sagamore Conference, we've already touched on it. 11 Tigers are at the top of the conference, 5-0 overall, 3-0 in the conference. Webo is 4-1 overall, 2-1 in the conference. Southmont and Tri-West also tied for second in the Sagamore with 2-1 records. They also have 3-2 records overall. North Montgomery, Danville, and Frankfort, they are all 1-2 in the conference, and followed down in last place in the Sagamore is Crawfordsville, 0-3. The Athenians, excuse me. Some days you just got to get them in Martinsville next up. Crawfordsville 0-5 overall. This week in the Sagamore, Frankfort is at Tri-West, Lebanon is at Danville, North Montgomery at Crawfordsville, and Southmont is at Western Boone. And finally, we'll take a look at the West Central Conference, South Putnam and Cascade. Both 4-1 overall. South Putnam 2-0 in the conference, Cascade 2-1 in the conference. The Monrovia Bulldogs are 2-1 in the conference, but 2-3 overall. Greencastle is 1-1 in the conference. They are 4-1, however, overall. Cloverdale and North Putnam are winless in conference play, 0-2. Cloverdale 1-4 overall, and the Eagles in North Putnam still looking for their first win. They're 0-5. Friday night action in the West Central Conference. Cascade, they are at Speedway. That'll be a tough matchup for the Cadets. Cloverdale's at South Putnam. North Putnam is at Greencastle, and Sheridan is at Monrovia. That is your Hendricks County action coming up this Friday night. Join us on 1610 AM XRB and XRBradio.com as Chris Worley will be joining me as we will have the broadcast this Friday from Lafayette Jefferson High School as the Broncos will host the Brownsburg Bulldogs. Again, time change for that game. Kickoff is at 7:30. Chris and I will have the pregame show beginning at 7:15. Next week here on the McDonald's Hendricks County Sports Show, I will be in Avon at the McDonald's on Rockville Road. That is the one right in front of Myers. My special guest for that show will be Avon head coach Mark Bless. No doubt we'll be talking about the big game that the Orioles had against the Millers this coming Friday. Chris, a lot of action, some good games. Should be a fun Friday night.
This is going to be a big week, and a big week for both our feature teams, Avon and Brownsburg.
As we get ready for the games next week, as we close out the McDonald's Hendricks County Sports Show, we want to thank our sponsors. Our title sponsor, McDonald's, College Prospects of America, and BMO Harris Bank. Special thanks to my guest host this week, Christopher Worley. I'm Brian Scott. Look forward to seeing you Friday from Lafayette Jefferson as the Bulldogs take on the Broncos. Until then, so long, everybody.